Hey everyone, this is JTB back with BigAlski for Chapter 6 Part B.
Hello, everyone. It's BigAlski.
And this will start off on the first fight of this one. You can just drag the essence from these bats. Pretty standard stuff here. Want to mention there, like the reason he isn't on landing right there is because of, you'll notice all three of those enemies spawn right, like they kind of surround him on the spawn. So if he'd have released that UT right off the bat, he'd have at least killed one, but he would have severely damaged the other two. And you can see, like, using this sweet spot here, you want to keep the enemies with as much health as possible to actually get the most UTs out of them. So it's a really smart move, like, knowing not to on-landing right off the start.
And also thanks to another Kiori spot.
Yep, you'll hear us say that a lot throughout the run, I think. There's a lot of sweet spots that he discovered that, like, just really changed the kind of general setup of the Karma run. And the one thing that is interesting to note about this fight, actually, I think the ending, you'll actually see it, but if you knock one of these enemies off the edge here, like, I think this one falls, yeah, you see that one on the left, he actually falls off the edge. You notice his essence doesn't actually come out here. Like, he has to actually charge a UT from scratch. Because their essence doesn't actually spawn if you knock them off the edge. So that's something that can, really screw with your time limits if you get really unlucky. And,
so I think,
sorry.
Did he go back up and save, you think, or just go respawn the bats?
Oh, right. I imagine he would have gone back up to save. You have so much time in Master Ninja. Like, I think once you get past Chapter 5, the only parts of the game, I think, apart from, like, the gauntlets that you have, they're the only parts where you don't have the time to go and save. Like, I think you can save after pretty much every single fight.
Now, notice him hitting the wall there, and you'll see the difference, how he, avoids that later on in the chapter. He hit the wall, was going to do his on-landing, hit Y, so, it really cost him a little time. But he rectifies that later on in the chapter. We'll talk about that then.
Yeah, that's something to really, like, I think, like, you can overcommit to that as well. Like, you can get in the rhythm of doing, like, your roll, jump, on landing, roll, jump, on landing. And that's kind of where you want to, like, take every single action you do, like, in and of itself. Like, don't ever get in, like, a rhythm, because that can go against you, like he does. I mean, it didn't really cost him any points there, because he did the beginning part of the fight so well. And he does it there again as well, yeah.
Yeah, he threw the shurikens at first to prevent him from doing it, but then he did it again.
Yeah. And now I think this sweet spot as well was shot by Kiori. Like, the enemies will actually come in there to attack you, but it's kind of weird. Like, if they're in the middle of an attack, like, if the animation carries them into that part of the arena, they'll just kind of stand there and not actually do anything. Like, they won't even move away from Ryu. So if you have a UT charged up, like, the entirety of that UT is going to hit them in that sweet spot.
We had a little discussion here when we were watching this beforehand that, he stayed in the... Did he come out here, figure out this spot, just afterwards, or did he do it, was it a calculated move to come out at a certain time?
I think I'm going to go with calculated move, because I think... I mean, we could have a look at his score here, but he's had, I think, 2 or 3 UTs at this point. And I know it happened to me when I was doing my run, actually. I got so many one-hit UTs in that first sweet spot that I was actually running out of time to actually kill them all in the time limit. So maybe a similar thing happened. Like, if you take note of his score, you could probably tell. Like, maybe he got so many, like, small hit UTs in that first sweet spot, he actually had to change his position to make the time limit. But because he did get so many of them, like, it went in his favor. And
then also having the level 1, lunar, he's not doing as much damage, so the enemy's health is longer, and the time limit's still the time limit.
Yeah, definitely. And note, after he picks up those Bigorian flails, there's a box, like, just before you come into this lift. He would have got them and then went back up all the way to that Muramasa just after the Hydra Cubus fight and upgraded them for the Archive Challenge. That is, like, chaining Bigorian flail UTs is... There's no better way to do that Archive Challenge than that.
Actually, I think I might have been one of the first guys to show the little go up to level 2, or, the second floor and do that. And, I'll be honest and say, it's because I couldn't fight him on the ground floor.
That fight on the ground floor is one of my favorite parts of the whole game. I noticed there he does actually get hit on his on landing. I think that's one of the first times that actually happens, and that does cost him 2 UTs there. I think he did mention that in his post, but that's another an example of knowing when not to go for your on landing, because he actually got hit out of his on landing frames. So that's something to take note of for a future run like that. There are points that if someone is going to go and beat his score, there is one of the few examples where he did actually miss a few points.
And notice the control he has over Ryu. We'll touch on it a little bit later on, but his ability to roll one way, jump not only the opposite, but left and right, backwards, forwards. Some people have a hard time with that. I mean, I'm one of them. But so the control means a lot. I mean, JTB can attest to that as well.
Yeah, we were talking about it just now. I think I would go as far as to say movement in this game is one of the most important aspects of mastering the combat. If you can't move well and in particular know how to move around your enemies so that you'll cause their attacks to whiff, so they won't actually hit you, and then while they're in their recovery frames you can land right next to them and start doing your attacks straight away. That is a huge part of especially a Karma run, because you need to maximize your time, and if you're spending time getting hit, then obviously that's time that you could be getting UTs.
Yeah, he got hit by that one, sledgehammer. That's the one thing too about the confinements of this room. Sometimes you get so focused on, where do I need to go, that, it's easy to lose track of some of the enemies. It really is a fine balance. You don't want to run too far to make sure that you get, you don't get hit from these guys, but you also don't want to have to wait 3 or 4 extra seconds for them to get into, UT range. So it's a balance that people probably don't, fully appreciate.
Yeah, I think and here you can see him using the shurikens, so he'll as long as you toss your shurikens while you're in air, Ryu will never do his wall cling animation. So and it's also really good because when you notice if he throws the shurikens, even though they actually ping off the zombies, it actually orientates Ryu in the direction of his enemies when he lands. So when he does his on landing UT, he's already facing them, and that's one drawback of the Lunar UT is if you have your back to an enemy, it will cause Ryu to turn around and UT the enemy, but it'll actually cost you about half of the Lunar UT's animation to actually turn around. So that's a really good thing to use. And here, if you notice on the time limit, when he picks up the, I think it's the chalice or something, it goes to 8-1, and then it stops and then goes down to 6-1, but then he gets the time limit at 6-1. That's something that I think is exclusive to Ninja Gaiden Black. Using any kind of interactable in a fight will actually freeze the clock, and you can really abuse that in some of the early fights. There's a few fights, I think in Chapter 1, where if you open the chest in them, it does buy you an extra second and a half on time limit. So that's just something that it's always good to note that. Keep that in mind.
Here comes another Kiori trick.
Yeah, this is a lot harder to kind of get down than it looks. What you need to do to get this to work is position Ryu where Balbade did just then, right behind that box, and the Fiend will, at a certain distance, he will try his roll attack that he does, and blocking that attack will actually pin him behind that box. You can just see it now in the background, that Fiend is actually trapped behind that box, because every time he tries to attack, he just headbutts the box. Now there is a very important thing to note. Balbade actually rotates the camera away from the Fiend, because if you have the camera angle on the Fiend, you'll see it here. That's the only way that Fiend can get out of that trap. You'll see him turn the camera here, he'll turn around, and then the Fiend can actually get out of that trap, and that's the only way that can happen. So when you're doing your on-landing UTs in that encounter to farm the zombies, it's very important that you keep the camera off of that Fiend, otherwise he can actually come out of that trap and then he'll screw up all your positioning, because you'll have to trap him again. That's pretty much something that would cost you to reset, I think, in my opinion. If you're going for a really high score, you'd never want that Fiend to get out of that trap until you'd farmed all the zombies. Well,
you talk about, the time limits on here are just crazy. But, being able to manage that, to maximize your UTs, again, it's something that it's not as easy as a lot of people think. I used to have some discussions with some of the guys over at GameFAQs, and they would always say how easy, a Karma run was, and it's like, trust me, it's not anywhere as easy as you think. And you've got all this time. Well, you've still got to manage, getting those UTs. And if you look a couple of fights in that fight, you only get 50 UTs per fight. And he uses he has to release there, so he missed a few UTs and got ETs out of it instead. And again, even a guy of this caliber, just a little bit off, the points can add up.
I think that's something that's interesting to note on this fight as well, is something that it's always been a huge problem of mine with the game, is Ryu's tendency to target like interactables over the axe-wielding zombies that are right in front of him. I know he does it in Chapter 1, he'll always target those like torches at the stairs, like instead of the ninjas. And on the Luna UT does go is one of the best ones in the game for that, because it's one of the few UTs in the game where...
Yeah, watch here. This is what he's talking about.
Perfect example. You see, like, the first hit of that, he actually goes to attack the switch on the floor. Even though there is an enemy closer to him, he will always prioritize, which is extremely frustrating. But the reason the Luna UT is good for that is because it's one of the few UTs in the game where the animation will actually start and will continue without hitting an enemy. You see he's using the flail UT here, and that the first hit of that UT will actually have to connect with an enemy, or it will just completely whiff, and you won't get any points for it. And then, of course, you'll have to recharge your UT, and it will cost you a lot of time.
Now, one thing, too, we've talked about some of the, the few, points that he's missed here, and this fight is so long. It's so long that, missing a few points here and there is not that big of a deal versus going back and fighting everything.
Yeah, like, if you want to restart, like, I think this is one of the longest gauntlets in the game, in terms of, like, how many fights are in the gauntlet and how long the fights are in it. It's one of the reasons why I never really used to enjoy Chapter 6 or 7 much, because the Chapter 7 gauntlet, you could get like those 4 zombie fights absolutely perfectly, and then Hydrocubus could just be a royal dick when you fight him and just not cooperate, and then you'd have to farm all the zombies all over again, and it's such a pain in the ass. One thing to note here as well, when he's killing the zombies with these UTs, is if you kill a zombie on the second to last or last hit of the Dragon Sword and Luna UT, you can see it here. If you jump away and charge, it will actually time it perfectly to get an ET and then a UT, and he actually uses this here to release that UT early and kill the zombie, but still have his essence to make his time them while getting that extra UT. That just goes into what we were saying about, knowing your time, knowing how long it takes to do certain things. There's so many things you need to kind of keep track of in your head, while doing a Karma run of this level.
Now, this right here, I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but he got lucky.
Yeah, this is great. Look at that. Yeah. That is, oh my God.
I'm sorry. If you fall down, you got to start the whole thing over again. And I'm telling you what, I fell down plenty of times on this fight.
Yep, that is so... Oh, I hate it when that happens. This is a really good example here of the level 1 Luna really going to his advantage. Usually you would use the regular nunchucks for this, but the problem with that is the regular nunchuck ET is actually... Off the top of my head, I think it's probably just as powerful as 4 hits of the Luna UT. There's a lot of power in that ET, so getting those... like ETs on these zombies is a lot easier with that level 1 Luna, and it's just like another example of how that's really helping him on the run. And he swaps to the flails here to kind of make sure he kills him in time. But he still has, I think, 1.9 seconds left at the end of that, so he might have been able to get more. But it's with the way like the rest of that gauntlet went, you kind of have to, know when to quit, like quit when you're ahead on that sort of stuff.
Well, notice our favorite move, they really took it out. The Ripping Thunder, the forward YYY, just eats this guy's lunch right here.
You look at his health, great. It's just... he is using the Armlet of Potency here, and that it does add... it adds a significant buff to, quote, kicks and throws. I think that's the description of it, but it only really seems to affect the Ripping Thunder. Every other move you use with like kicks or throws, like using like you think it'd make the guillotine throw really, really powerful, but it really doesn't. Like it doesn't seem to have much effect on it.
Right.
Now here you can see his essence, like how he would have managed his essence here. You get a ton of essence in this chapter between UTing the clone and doing the archive challenge. He would have gone back and got his double elixirs to make sure that he can finish with Nimpo, not to miss out on the bonus.
And he leveled up his UF quite a bit as well.
Yeah, he would have leveled up that.
Okay, guys, this is it. Chapter 6 has an hour and 19 minutes. The kills are 58. This is BigAlski and
JTB.
And we'll see you in Chapter 7. Thanks a lot, guys.